They say love finds you when you stop looking. But for me, love wasn't just something I wasn't looking for. It was something I didn't believe in. For years, I told myself that gay love was a fantasy, something fragile, fleeting, doomed to end in heartbreak. I'd seen too many stories of people losing themselves for someone who never stayed. So I built walls, tall, unshakable ones, and told myself I was better off alone. Then I met him. And suddenly, everything I thought I knew started to crumble. I moved to the city when I was 26. A new job, a small apartment, and a quiet plan to keep my head down. I worked as a junior architect at a mid-sized firm downtown. The office was all clean lines and neutral colors, the kind of place where emotions were neatly hidden behind polite smiles and coffee cups. I liked it that way. No drama, no distractions, just deadlines and blueprints, until the day he joined the team. His name was Elias Rivera. He'd just transferred from another branch, and from the moment he walked in, the entire office shifted, like gravity itself had rearranged. Tall, with a sharp jawline softened by kind eyes, Elias carried himself with an ease that made people instantly comfortable. He had that kind of quiet confidence, not loud, not arrogant, just grounded. He smiled when our manager introduced us. "You must be Aaron," he said. "I've heard good things." "Hope they weren't lies," I replied, forcing a small laugh. He chuckled. "Guess I'll find out soon." And just like that, something inside me stirred. A faint flicker I immediately ignored. The next few weeks went by in a blur of projects, coffee breaks, and late nights at the office. Elias was sharp, the kind of person who noticed the details everyone else missed. He'd glance over my shoulder during a design review and point out something subtle, something brilliant. But what stood out most wasn't his skill, it was how he saw people. When he talked to you, he made you feel like the only person in the room. We started grabbing lunch together, then coffee, then, somehow, Friday night drinks turned into weekend errands and lazy Sunday breakfasts. It didn't take long before he became part of my routine, a constant, comforting presence I didn't want to admit I'd grown attached to. One evening, after a long day at work, he called. "Still at the office?" "Yeah," I said, rubbing my eyes. "Just finishing up." "Good," he replied, "because I'm downstairs. Come out." I frowned, glancing at the clock. It was almost 9. "What are you doing here?" "Saving you from spreadsheets," he said simply. When I walked outside, he was leaning against his car, hands in his pockets, city lights glowing behind him. "Come on," he said, grinning. "I found this little rooftop cafe that stays open late." "I can't," I said half-heartedly. "I have work." He tilted his head, that teasing spark in his eyes. "Aaron, when was the last time you did something spontaneous?" I opened my mouth to argue, and then stopped. Because I couldn't remember. The cafe was small and quiet, tucked between two old buildings with string lights overhead and soft jazz playing from a corner speaker. We ordered coffee, sat outside, and watched the city hum beneath us. "Feels good up here," I said. "Yeah," Elias replied, leaning back in his chair. "You can almost forget the world down there exists." I nodded. "That's kind of what I've been trying to do lately." He looked at me for a moment. Really looked. "You mean avoid it?" I smirked. "You say avoid, I say protect." "From what?" he asked softly. I hesitated, then shrugged. "People, feelings, complications," he smiled faintly. "Sounds lonely." "It's peaceful," I said quickly, almost defensive. He didn't argue, just nodded, sipping his coffee. But the silence that followed wasn't empty. It was heavy, meaningful, like he understood exactly what I wasn't saying. Later that night, as we drove back, the rain started. Not heavy, just a quiet drizzle tapping against the windshield. He parked outside my apartment building but didn't turn off the engine. "You ever think maybe you're not protecting yourself?" he said quietly. "Maybe you're just hiding." His words hit harder than I expected. I looked out the window, my chest tight. "You think I'm afraid of something?" He smiled gently. "Not something. Someone." The air between us changed, softer, warmer, filled with something I couldn't name. He turned to look at me, eyes steady, searching. "You don't have to say it. I just hope one day you'll let someone in, Aaron." I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But the fear was louder than the longing, so I just nodded and whispered, "Good night, Elias." When I stepped out of the car, the rain was cool against my skin. And as I watched his headlights disappear down the street, I realized my hands were trembling. That night, I couldn't sleep. His words played over and over in my head. "Maybe you're just hiding." And for the first time in years, I wondered if he was right. Because the truth was, I'd been hiding. From love, from vulnerability, from the part of me that wanted more. And somehow, Elias had seen it. They say denial is just another way of protecting yourself. For me, it became a habit. A shield I didn't even realize I was still holding. After that night in the rain, something changed between Elias and me. Nothing obvious, not at first, but the air around us carried a new tension, fragile, electric, and impossible to ignore. I walked into the office early, trying to lose myself in work. Blueprints, measurements, lines and angles, things that made sense. But when Elias arrived, carrying his usual coffee and half smile, my chest tightened. "Morning," he said, handing me a cup. "You got me coffee again?" I asked, taking it before I could protest. He shrugged. "You never remember breakfast. Consider it community service." I smiled, grateful for the excuse not to talk about Friday night. But every time our hands brushed, every time his gaze lingered a little too long, the memory of his words echoed. "Maybe you're not protecting yourself. Maybe you're just hiding." That month, the firm landed a new client, a boutique hotel renovation just outside the city. Our boss assigned us to work on the design proposal together, which meant late nights, shared ideas, and too many moments that felt like something more. We spent hours side by side, sketching layouts, arguing over textures, laughing over bad coffee. And in between, we learned things that had nothing to do with work. Elias told me about growing up near the coast, how he used to sneak out to the beach at night just to listen to the waves. He talked about his first apartment, his sister's wedding, his love for vinyl records. And me? I found myself talking, really talking for the first time in years, about my family, my fear of failing, my complicated history with relationships, or rather, my lack of them. "You've never been in love?" he asked one night quietly. I shook my head. "Not really. I thought I was once, but it was more comfort than connection. Love is complicated." He smiled softly. "Maybe it's not supposed to be easy. Maybe that's what makes it real." I looked at him then, really looked. The way his lashes framed his eyes, how the lamplight turned his skin to gold. And I realized I was staring too long. "Maybe," I said, barely above a whisper. It happened late one night at the office. Everyone else had gone home. Rain tapped gently against the windows, the city below a blur of lights. We were reviewing plans when the power flickered, plunging the room into semi-darkness. Elias chuckled. "Guess even the grid needs a break." "Don't jinx it," I said. But the computers stayed off, the silence stretching between us. Want to call it a night? I asked. He shook his head. No. I like it like this. He leaned against the desk, watching me. You ever think about what you're missing out on? I frowned. What do you mean? Life, he said simply. Love. The things you keep at arm's length. I laughed, but it came out awkward, brittle. You sound like a therapist. Maybe I'm just a friend who sees you better than you see yourself. The words hit somewhere deep, and then, before I could think, before I could stop myself, I whispered, what if I don't know how to let someone in? He took a step closer, then another. You don't have to know, he said softly. You just have to want to. The room was quiet except for the rain and the faint hum of city life beyond the glass. He was standing close enough that I could smell his cologne, subtle, warm, like cedar and rain. My pulse quickened. My hands trembled. And for a moment I thought he might kiss me, but he didn't. He just smiled sadly and whispered, "Good night, Aaron." Then he left me standing there, heart racing, thoughts in chaos. The next few days were torture. We worked together, but something was different, more careful, more distant. He stopped bringing me coffee, stopped staying late, stopped looking at me the way he used to, and it hurt, more than I wanted to admit. One evening I found myself outside his apartment building without even realizing how I'd gotten there. I stood on the sidewalk staring up at his window, wondering if I should go in, if he'd even want me to. My phone buzzed. Elias, you okay? I stared at the message. How did he always know? Me. Can we talk? A pause. Then, Elias, come up. When he opened the door, his expression softened immediately. You look like you've been overthinking again. I'm good at it, I said. Yeah, he replied quietly. You are. We sat down, the silence between us heavy but not hostile. I've been trying to give you space, he said. Did I do something wrong? No, I said quickly. You didn't. I ran a hand through my hair. I don't know what I'm doing, Elias. He nodded slowly. You don't have to. I looked up at him, really looked, and everything I'd been running from came crashing down. The warmth in his eyes, the steadiness in his voice, the way he made the world quieter just by being there, and suddenly I couldn't lie anymore. I'm scared, I admitted, of ruining this, of wanting something I shouldn't. He exhaled softly, moving closer. Aaron, wanting someone isn't wrong. His voice was low, steady, the kind that made you believe it. And in that moment, something broke open inside me. Without thinking, I whispered, You scare me, Elias. He smiled sadly. Good. That's how you know it's real. We sat there for a long time. No grand gestures, no dramatic confessions. Just two people sitting in quiet understanding, letting the truth finally exist between them. When I left that night, he didn't stop me. He just looked at me with that same steady warmth and said, You'll figure it out. I'll be here when you do. And for the first time in years, I believed him. It had been a month since that night at Daniel's door. A month of unanswered texts, polite small talk at work, and the kind of distance that feels worse than silence. We'd gone from being inseparable to strangers who shared awkward smiles in the hallway. And yet, every time our eyes met, something lingered, something unspoken, alive, waiting. I told myself to move on. I even tried, but every attempt felt hollow, like pretending to forget a song that still plays quietly in the back of your mind. One evening, as I packed up my things, my manager stopped by my desk. Hey, we're hosting the annual conference next week, she said. You and Daniel will be presenting together, right? My heart stuttered. Together, I nodded, forcing a smile. Yeah, of course. The day of the conference, the ballroom was buzzing with energy. Bright lights, murmuring voices, rows of expectant faces. Daniel stood beside me at the podium, dressed in a fitted charcoal suit. He looked calm, composed, except for the way his fingers tapped nervously against his cue cards. When our eyes met, he gave me a small, uncertain smile. It was the first genuine one I'd seen in weeks. As we spoke, something shifted between us. The rhythm that used to come so naturally returned. We finished each other's sentences, laughed at the same moments, and for the first time in a long time, it felt like us again. When the presentation ended, the audience applauded. As we stepped off stage, Daniel leaned closer and whispered, "Can we talk later?" I nodded, my pulse racing. That night, he asked me to meet him on the office rooftop. It was quiet up there, the city stretching out beneath us like a sea of golden lights. He stood by the railing, hands in his pockets. "I didn't think you'd come," he said softly. "I almost didn't," I admitted. "But I'm tired of wondering." He turned then, eyes glistening in the low light. "I owe you an apology. I hurt you, and I hate that I did. But I was scared. Scared of what my dad would say, scared of what people at work would think, scared of losing everything I've built." I took a step closer. "And what about losing yourself?" He sighed, looking down. "That's the part I didn't think about. When I pushed you away, I thought I was protecting my life. But without you in it, it stopped feeling like mine." My heart thudded. "So what are you saying?" He met my gaze then, steady and unguarded. "I'm saying I love you, and I don't want to keep hiding it." For a moment, the world went still. The wind brushed past us, cool and quiet, carrying away every word I'd been too afraid to say. Then I whispered, "Say it again." He smiled, a trembling, tearful smile. "I love you." And this time, when I reached for him, he didn't pull away. We kissed beneath the city lights, slow and sure, the kind of kiss that makes you believe in beginnings again. The next few days were different. He didn't hide anymore. We started having lunch together again, walking home side by side, laughing openly instead of glancing around first. It wasn't about making a statement, it was about finally breathing. But the biggest moment came that Sunday. He invited me to dinner with his father. I froze when he asked, "Are you sure?" He nodded. "I need to stop running." That night, I waited in his car outside his family home, nerves twisting in my stomach. When he finally walked out, he looked pale but calm. "How'd it go?" I asked. He exhaled shakily. He didn't take it well. But he didn't walk away either. I reached for his hand. "That's a start." He nodded, eyes glimmering. "Yeah, and for the first time, I don't feel ashamed." Months passed. Seasons changed. Our love grew. Steady, patient, real. There were still hard days. Moments when fear crept back in, when we questioned if the world would ever fully accept us. But then there were the small moments, the ones that mattered most. Cooking dinner together in our tiny kitchen. Slow dances in the living room when the world outside felt too loud. The way he'd whisper, "You make me feel safe," before falling asleep in my arms. Love didn't fix everything, but it made everything worth it. If you told me years ago that I'd fall in love with another man, I would have laughed. I would have said it wasn't for me, that it was too complicated, too risky, too wrong, but I was wrong. Love isn't defined by fear or by what others think it should look like. Love is defined by truth, by the way your heart recognizes someone as home, even when your mind tries to deny it. Daniel showed me that. He showed me that real love isn't loud or perfect. It's quiet, honest, and brave. And now, when I look at him, I see everything I used to be afraid of. And everything I'll never let go of again. Maybe I was wrong about gay love, but I've never been more grateful to be proven wrong.